workshop or reply to us, so I can help them.
Okay, and I'm Francis Cindy. I started Communitues as well some time ago, and what we do obviously is try and get people together to talk about some of the big issues of the 21st century. We have this relationship now with London Net where we have meetings here now every month, as well as the other meetings we have. You came to the one we had, I think, at Conway Hall, absolutely packed out. And the London Net ones to talk to students and try to get communities and other people involved. And we said we do this one on artificial intelligence and democracy, and then each month we do a different topic and we try and involve different people. And what we've got today really is, we've got 4 speakers. One of them is me. I'm very lazy. I actually made a speech about a year ago and it's on there, so I can play that and I can sit down and not make a speech. I know it sounds really lazy and I'm guilty, but you can listen to it on there. That's 7 minutes, and Ida is going to speak for 7 minutes. And where is she? On right next to the first speak for 7 minutes about their, perspective on the impact of artificial intelligence on society and particularly democracy from their student and teaching point of view. And then that's going to go on at the end and talk about, I suppose, how we can address the problems and the way we can do politics differently to address those problems. And he'll talk for about 10 minutes. And if you want to interrupt any of us, please do. Don't. I'm sure people won't worry. So if you interrupt that, it probably won't stop, but we can try. Okay, so should we start and just go through it? The bit that I've got on here really is when I spoke at the London Voluntary Service Council, and they were discussing the network city, and I just did a little speech about big data and how it impacts on us, and I looked at it, I thought it's ideal for this, so rather than go through it again, and I probably won't say it as well if I did, I'll play this, and it will start us off looking at the problem of big data and how it impacts on our democracy. So providing this works, let's have a look at this. The network city or network society is here already. It already exists. If you've ever read it, and if you haven't, I recommend it, Alex Penton's book, Social Physics. It's about big data and how big data already exists and is expanding. And if you look at Google, Amazon, Facebook, everything together, you can get as much data, on people's behavior, what they consume, what their leisure time is, what their relationships are, through sentiment analysis on places like Twitter, how strongly they feel about it, that you can organize cities in a way that meets that analysis. And that organization can be done better than if you use focus groups, if you use opinion polls, or even if you use referenda. Referenda is a snapshot in time, but using big data in the way that Alex Pentler describes it is organic. You can measure movements over time. Now this is quite dangerous democracy, because why do you need democracy if you have the state, if you have organizations who can actually assess what you want at any point in time and how that changes over time? How can deliberative democracy work in that? What's the role of the voluntary sector in that when you've got people in some sort of new brain, new world, doing things for you? Some people argue that this is the future, this is how it's going to happen. But for me, Global Net 21 that we set up is a way of trying to reintroduce the importance of democracy in a time when we're having big data. Big data challenges democracy, challenges deliberative democracy, and you have to find a way of trying to challenge that in a way that brings people back into the center of things. So what we did is we used social networks to try and get people together to discuss the big issues of the 21st century. And we used the meetup site, first of all, because it is the best site for getting bottoms on seats. And we began to organise meetings in London and keep people talking about big issues. We then began to use other networks as well, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and so on, Google+. I know people don't like these big, I was talking to some people here, they don't like Facebook and Google, but if you want to get big audiences, you have to use them when you look for alternatives. Sorry, you have to get your bed to the devil. But we used all of these in order to get people to come to these events to discuss it. And, over a period of time, we've now got about 30,000 people in our social networks. We run 75 events a year. And in those 75 events, more than 75 events, but in those events, we get people together face to face, sometimes in the House of Commons where we bring in politicians, sometimes where we collaborate with other organisations and do events together, sometimes where we have small deliberative discussions, and we increasingly now use webinars, because you may have a network city, but in the global age, communities are not just based on geography. They're based on space. They're based upon people with common interests getting together wherever they are in the world. The global webinars allow people in one city to communicate with people in another city and learn from each other. Alex Penton in his book says, people don't really understand change in society. It's not people who have the best ideas that are important. It's people who know how to harvest other people's ideas. That's what Google does, that's what all the big data people do. They know how to harvest other people's ideas and turn it to their advantage. We have to create social networks that harvest other people's ideas and bring them into a democratic, deliberative way of thinking. So we use GlobalNet and all the networks we use to do that. We then try and work with other organisations to try and involve people who are involved in democratic and community services to engage in that way. So we do a lot of work with organisations like the Local Government Information Unit to try and talk about how councillors and officers can engage with the community by using social networks, by setting up Facebook groups, by using Facebook Live and live streaming, by talking to people online. We've done as part of GlobalNet, which we've got on Facebook and on Meetup. We've also started in where I live, Enfield, the local group called Enfield Voices. We've got one in Suffolk, we've got one in Cambridge, where we try and engage councillors and others in talking about the issues using online methods. We also work with an association of housing associations called GULAG, Give Us a Chance, where we're looking at how we can showcase good practice so people can learn from each other and improve, and how they can develop partnerships. So what we're trying to do basically is not just look at service delivery, which we do with some of the issues we talk about, things like loneliness. We've got a meeting coming up soon in the House of Lords on the crisis of social care. We look at issues like that. But we also, I think, with our primary aim, try to get people to network to discuss the future, to discuss ideas. Because it seems to me that if you don't do that, you may think some people say ideas, talking is, but it's actually wrong. But if you don't get people to talk together, to find what each other wants, to harvest each other's ideas, you won't combat this society with big data that I talked about right at the beginning, which is with us now, which is growing, and which is about the big corporations and big government using big data to actually design our society based upon that data, which is incredibly extensive. Democracy will take a back seat if we don't create alternative methods of engagement and co-production to deal with it. And basically that's what GlobalNet is about, to get people together to do that and to work together in that deliberative and discursive way. And I think that's incredibly important. Have I kept myself pretty much that?
Thanks very much, Francis. That's great.
Or network society is here. Okay, so I thought I'd play that first because it sets the scene. It actually talks about the dangers of big data on democracy, and what I've done and others have done in GlobalNet to find one way of tackling it by getting people together and using the social networks almost against themselves in a way, and how successful that will be in the long term, who knows, as big data grows. But I thought we'd do that just to set the scene. Let's get both of you now to talk about it. Yvonne, do you want to talk first about your sort of take on artificial intelligence and democracy?
Yes. Hello everyone. Right, I would like you all to apply your imagination. Hello, welcome. I want to announce the brave new world is here. I have a book called Data Driven, and my undergrad study was about the privacy and security of mobile devices. How does this device, and I'm going to announce that I believe I've been brain hacked. I believe I've been brain hacked by Facebook, Amazon, globalization. I've been fed a lie that it's all in the drive of innovation, that the continent of Africa will be so much better if they embrace technology, cut down the trees and embrace democracy from the westernized world. So I'm going to be talking from two aspects. From being a creative thinker, which is a green hat, to give you the wonders and the possibilities. So this morning I woke up and I thought, let me watch a little trailer of Logan's Run. It's a movie that was done in 1976. It was talking about a group of, a utopic world where you lived well, you had all your heart's desire, but at the age of 30, a crystal in your hand would turn a colour, and then you would go to the ceremony, you would float to the ceiling, bang. But what happened was, when it was really worked out by a runner, who, if people saw the crystal, it's time for you to do the ceremony, and somebody said, I don't really want to leave yet, I want to continue living. They were sort of like assassins who would kill these people. So big data for me, it's good. It makes my life very easy. But what it also do, it infringes on my civil liberties. Companies, big companies, they are using data, they know my behaviour, they know what I like to desire. I've had local councils can tell me more about myself, and my parents don't even know nothing about me. So this is what I'm trying to challenge of the moral aspects of companies. Who writes the ethics on what they do with this data? The law this year in May, done by GDPR, it was a global wake-up call. And what I find the worst thing, and this is the black hat aspect of me cautioning us, do we really need to write a manifesto for humanity, empathy? Because I bring it closer to home, universal credit. It's going to be a good benefit. But when you go to the job centre and says the machine says you're sanctioned, I know people are going hungry because the system that government office said would be for the benefit of the beneficiaries, they're going hungry. They're going to food banks, and we're saying we're in the Western world, we're helping our neighbours. So big data is good in one aspect, but who's in control of it? I don't want my data to be held by a company, a CEO, receive profits. And this book by Jenny Dermot-Bourne, talk about data driven, when I feel compassion for people. So my democracy angle is, do I need to write a manifesto to protect my privacy and my security, that I'm a unique person? Does a company have the right to tell me that they can extract information from my underage children, but they ask for my consent to share after they've stolen it? Yes? So the practice, what I saw in May, was just a practice to say, oh, we've been doing bad and unethical things with your data, but we're going to ask you to consent to steal what we've done already. So my concern is with democracy, I don't have the right to say, no, you can't take my data or my information before it's happened. They've got it already. We cannot go retrospectively and give me back my liberties. You've already taken my freedom away. So my first thing is, and I want to give 3 scenarios. 1, do we require the room? Do you think we need to require that we write a manifesto for humanity to protect our civil liberties and rights? 2, as a student, I am into protesting. I believe the academic students, we are a body of people who, no matter what causes around the world on any issue, we have the right to protest. Big data, I think, removes that from us. We have to comply with rules and regulations. Rules are to be broken. And as a musician, as a rebel, I don't want to be under rules and regulations. But I think we need to take the power away from globalization and for us to go back to being unique as a creative. So I'm going to put it out there, it's a complex issue. That as a creative, I love it. I'm very technophobe. I love being information overloaded. But then on the other hand, I said, who controls the power? Is it just the same 2%? And we, you know, so it's the ethics and the morals of it. We do not hear that discussion in the governments. So as a leaving point, can you create, and I want everyone to just use their imagination. Can you imagine tomorrow we wake up, the House of Lords, the MPs, they don't even have to get out of the bed. We don't have a scandal. Why? We just put holograms instead. Can you see that? So I'm going to talk about robotics. So just think of the ideal world where democracy is still relevant in the 21st century. So I would like people to think about what would democracy be in the 21st century and how would we make analog laws and legislation be still relevant then and bring compassion and empathy. Because I think what we miss out of big data is that what makes us human and what's not making us robots. And what I want to express as an artistic person, robots do not breathe. That's the point. Thank you.
I talked about the impact of IE and big data on democracy, and Ewan talked about it as well, but particularly on civil liberties, which is really important. And Aila, what are you going to contribute to this? Because I know that you, in the last meeting, had some very strong ideas on this.
Hi, my talk is going to be similar to Yvonne's, mostly the same ideas. Basically, we all know AI is the ability of a computer program or machine that it basically thinks, and it makes us to think and learn. In general terms, it means a machine which mimics human perception and understanding. Therefore, it seems as long as man or humans can control what the machine does, it's perfectly safe, but disastrous in terms of the outcome. So I'm going to talk about the impacts of in future generations and on parents and children mostly. Firstly, the benefits of AR, which means transferring mostly for businesses, impacting on every corner of our society in a positive light, which is a very good thing, and I'm very, I'm not against it. I'm very, I support the idea of big data change and everything. We certainly use it for a lot of medical challenges like image recognition, enhancing public security. It advances like it gives us more intelligent ways to simplify and effective ways of our workload. So includes a lot of medical challenges. For example, the 3D heart helping in terms of transplant with the use of AI. Without those kind of technology, without AI, we can't do those things. Also, if we think about emails. In terms of everybody has either phones or phones or computers, spam emails, it actually removes a lot of spam emails into storage profiles. Who does it? It's actually AI, which is a good thing, but we don't want any of those things overloaded with us. It's a faster way of scheduling, planning for businesses like fraud detection. AI is capable of making decisions significantly faster than humans, so in that way it kind of advances a lot of our workload. It's also good for unbiased decisions. AI can handle the decision making process by reading prejudice. Also, for example, if humans, we are end of the day prone to bias, prejudice. AI has no emotions, so they can do it. We can use that as a very effective tool. Repetitive jobs. Humans, we kind of do things and then we get kind of bored. We don't want to do that, and we're back to humans. The difference between humans and AI is that it's not going to do it. It can do it as long as we want it to work, but they don't. We need breaks, but AI doesn't need breaks. So in terms of effectiveness for our goals in society, it's a very good thing. Also, error reduction. AI is likely to improve accuracy of operations on a more collective and on a larger scale. It can be useful for continuous performance. AI does not need breaks like compared to humans, but we need to stop, we need breaks, we need to live, but that's the difference. Things that these are the positive side of AI, but there are like kind of in both ways arguments and things that are not so positive are like if we have AI controlling all those jobs, things that are made easy for us, many low-skilled jobs will no longer be available for certain people indefinitely. So that means what will happen to our workforce? The government or us parliament, they will have to think of ways for those kind of people. Not everybody's going to go and study, not everybody's going to try and do something new, because that's the way of life, that's the way they have been known to do things. So they'll have to think of a bigger resolution of way of doing things. The evolution of AI will mean only a few corporations or a group of people will have power over AI. Similar to what Yvonne has said, that is kind of the main worry in terms of ethical and moral concerns. They're not recognizable for robots and machines compared to humans. They don't recognize that. How do we, when we go to, like, when we're selected for jobs, when we look at, like, for example, employers look at people, they look at names, they identify people, they look at people's profile, they understand, like, okay, they can differentiate between certain races, certain groups of people, whether they're educated or whether they're a bit lower qualification. They can detect that, but humans do that, but AI doesn't do that. So in that way, it's very, very good, but in terms of people, it's not good. So we can use that in a beneficial way. But the other controversial point is about video games, certainly for children aged 3 to 16. They've recently, over the past, like probably 12 years or so,